Good morning. Thank you for being here with us again, and we'll jump right into Pew Packers. Jesus called them one by one, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Next came Philip, Thomas too, Matthew and Bartholomew, James the one they called the less, Simon also Thaddeus, the 12th apostle Judas made. Jesus was by him betrayed. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them, and they all followed him. This the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine all the time, let it shine. All around my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. All around my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. All around my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine all the time, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine all the time, let it shine. Won't let Satan it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let Satan it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let Satan it out. I'm gonna let it shine all the time, let it shine. When I was a little child, no higher than your knee, my mother bought a box of crayons just for me. I picked 'em up, I opened 'em up, I looked way down inside, and the colors there reminded me of Jesus when he died. Oh, red is the color of the blood that he shed. Brown's for the crown of thorns they placed upon his head. Blue is for royalty which in him did dwell. Yellow's for the Christian who's afraid to tell. I colored till my crayons were all gone. And now that I'm much older, the memory lingers on. And when I see a little child with crayon box in hand, I tell them what it means to me. I hope they understand. Oh, red is the color of the blood that he shed. Brown's for the crown of thorns they placed upon his head. Blue is for royalty which in him did dwell. Yellow's for the Christian who's afraid to tell. So don't be a Christian who's afraid to tell. Now we're going to jump right into our Bible story. And if you guys remember last week, we did the first part of the 10 plagues of Egypt. And now we're going to jump into the second part. So let's go through this story together.
Our story today is a continuation of last week's. It's Moses and the 10 Plagues, Part 2. Again, you can find these in the book of Exodus. In Egypt, the children of Israel had become slaves of Pharaoh. When God told Moses that it was time to go to the land which he had promised them, Pharaoh did not want to release them, and so God sent terrible plagues until Pharaoh would agree to release them. When Pharaoh said that he would not let the people go, God sent huge hailstones which stripped leaves off the trees, and I'm sure started a lot of chaos, and it destroyed a bunch of crops. But did this change Pharaoh's mind? No, it didn't. So next, God sent a sickness on all of the cows, and they all got hungry and they died. All of the livestock did. But did that change Pharaoh's mind? Moses asked Pharaoh again to let his people go, but Pharaoh still said no. So God sent sores and boils on Pharaoh and the Egyptians. I'm sure they felt very sick and sore and they hurt, but Pharaoh still did not change his mind. Then God sent a great swarm of locusts throughout the land of Egypt. They ate everything that was green and good to eat and everything. So do you think Pharaoh changed his mind then? No, Pharaoh still would not change his mind. So God sent a thick blackness over the whole land of Egypt. You guys ever been somewhere where it's really dark? Well, there was no light here. I kind of think about it like if you went into a deep cave and they turn off all the lights and there's nothing there. That'd be kind of scary, wouldn't it? But Pharaoh still would not let the people go. So God sent the 10th and most awful plague. He said that every firstborn son in Egypt would die. Now, they had a way to make the death not happen in their family, which they would observe called the Passover, where they would put blood of a lamb on top of a doorpost. But do you think the Egyptians did that? Do you think Pharaoh did that? No, even Pharaoh's own son died. So do you think he was very happy? No, he was very sad, and he finally understood God's power and realized that he needed to let the people go. So the next day, the children of Israel were all let go from Egypt, and they followed Moses to the land that God had promised them. As I said last week, this is kind of a sad story because of all of the bad things that happened, but Pharaoh wouldn't listen to Moses, and he wouldn't listen to God through Moses. So these things were to prove God's power. They weren't there to be a slight hindrance or a slight obstacle, but they were major things that happened to prove God's power and to prove that Pharaoh needed to listen to Moses and to God. So I hope that we can learn from this story that we need to obey God. We need to do the things that He has told us to do because He is always looking out for us no matter what. Thank you so much for going through this story with us.
So, what did you guys think of that story? Kind of sad because there were a lot of plagues. There was a lot of things that came that in big bunches, like frogs and locusts and everything, that would be kind of nasty to have around all the time. But then at the end, they had the death of the firstborn sons, and that would be very sad. But what does that tell us? It tells us that we need to follow God and do what He tells us to do so that we can avoid things like that. So God always is looking out for us, but we need to follow His will and do what He has told for each and every one of us to do. I appreciate each and every one of you being here, participating, and helping out. And I hope to see you again next week, and we'll figure out what story is going to be then. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to Him belong. They are weak, but He is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.